So what I have up is just a sheet file itself. So really just kind of wanted to go through on the printing, the print dialog, just some of the settings and those types of things, the plot config and that, and then Schwab will go through the Psets. So with that, what I'm going to do is just go up to the print dialog here. You can pick this, pick plot, go to your icons, go to your printing in there, multiple ways to get to it. So what you're going to see, again, the plot config identifies your area of your boundary for your sheet. So it's going to know what to look for. As you can see, different colors, some things are gray, some things are not. That's all dependent upon this config file. So again, when in the 24 workspace, you'll be able to come in here, pick that config file that you want. For now, what I'm going to have to do is just go navigate to that. And so it will reside in here in your 24 workspace, which will be in the 03 project standards. So that'll be there. So I'm just going to go through the minor projects here, our test project, and then through this guy. And what I did is I set it under project standards. So again, if I have for a project specific, best place to put everything. So I'm going to pick the CDOT PDF plot config. So you're going to see everything's going to change. Now it all looks like a regular plan sheet. So one of the things to look at is through there. So if I go in to look at my print driver, there is something called color maps. So that's how this is set. So to kind of answer, it's not really so much the WYSIWYG. I'll get into the WYSIWYG pin table, but it's kind of a WYSIWYG plot config. So the plot config, the default plot config is going to have colors 1 through 8 are going to print 0, 0, 0, which means they're going to print black. 10, 11, and 13. Reason for those, same cuts, fills. That's why those are 0. Everything else is going to be what you see is what you get. So whatever color it is what it's going to print out. That's why there is a separate bridge plot config. That bridge plot config is because in bridge, they use a lot of different colors because of the details that go into the bridge elements. So they have a lot of those different colors. So they have a different plot config so that it will print out the way it needs to print out for them. Worked on that again with regions, also with internal bridge folks to make sure that those things were covered. So that's how this is controlled. Not that you guys will be changing any of this or setting any of this, but just so that you have a background information on that's how this is controlled. The pin table itself, it will, same thing. We're going to go into, didn't need to pick that one. We're going to go into the minor projects again. For this instance, anyways, it will show up in your guys' workspace again in 24. So project standards and workset standards. And then I'm going to pick WYSIWYG. And the reason why I pick WYSIWYG is because in the pin tables themselves, because you guys have multiple pin tables, those pin tables are controlling how things print as far as color grays, different things like that. So I know the question was asked earlier if we could just use those same template pin tables. You can, but then you have to maintain all 15, 20 of those. So if something changes, you have to go through all of them. What this does is this keeps one, again, trying to get efficient, trying to keep one source of truth basically on this. So what this pin table does is basically just asks for the text to be printed on top and any images and different things like that to be printed out correctly. That's what the WYSIWYG really is for. So with that, there's a rasterize button. What this rasterize button does is this provides a transparency. So again, under settings, preferences, so there's that allow paper size. Actually, I went to the wrong one. Settings, print, attributes is what I wanted to go to. So one thing you want to do is make sure that that level overrides is checked on, and you want to have your transparency checked on. So again, that's in settings, and print attributes. So I want those checked on when I print. When I do that, if I pick rasterize, you're going to see that gray change in here versus a solid. So right now it's solid. I'm going to try and get these windows across. So if I pick rasterize, what it does is it allows a gray filter for those elements that are underneath the materials show up. Right now they wouldn't show up if I printed it. Now they will. So that is one thing that will be checked as well. Mike will go over that a little bit in the Psets. So this controls what the plot looks like. So again, utilities was asked about before. Well, in your utilities container file, that you're just going to reference in. You're not going to have any level overrides on it because those colors that are pertaining to the utilities are not the 1 through 8 or the 10, 11, 13. They're different colors in that color table that will print color because that's what the color maps identified that I just showed in that plot config file. So if I reference in those utilities and it's a utility container file, I don't manipulate. Those are just going to print color how I want them to. Redway, they're gray because that's what I did in my container file, and that's where I control everything is in my container file for that reason. So then if I do for any instance project specific, if we need to highlight something, let's say even from like a stakeholder information, someone wants to see the gas line, and we can manipulate that and turn that gas line to a color that's going to be visible and maybe update the weight, but we can do that in the container file. We don't have to go try and do that in a bunch of different areas. We can just do it in one place and then we're good. So this is what the print will look like at the end of the day. So when I go and print it, you're going to see, and I'm just going to put it to a test case right now. I'm just going to save it on my local drive for right now. And then as it prints, it'll pop up. All right. So what I get is this print through here. So Chris says rasterizing now, it makes text unsearchable. Text is searchable through Bluebeam. You run your OCR, it will go through and it will identify all your text so you can see that text to make it searchable. But the print comes out, the print is through there, and this is what it looks like. And I wouldn't say it's a step that you didn't have to do. I know some of the regions, that's a mandatory thing to run the OCR once prints are done to capture all the text, because a lot of times too, even when you print it, it doesn't capture all the text for searchable.
Within the PDF itself, right?
Within the PDF itself.
Yeah, yep. You don't have to do your Bluebeam or anything, Chris, just within the PDF.
That is really just from printing a file. So any questions on that part? Paul.
Just go over one more time why we rasterized.
So in this instance too, so again, the material itself is set to a transparency in this file. So with that transparency, unless you set it to rasterize so that it will actually print that transparent, you've got to set that rasterize button to do that. That's really going to be the only places you would do that mainly is on a plan sheet from a roadway standpoint, and then on a drainage sheet for the utilities. Those are really the only two places that you would end up using the rasterize is when you have the materials file in there. One of the things though, as we evolve moving forward, Again, that's for now. This could completely change in a year from now, depending on how technology advances, where we're not having separate files and we don't have to do a transparency to these, and you run your template in your corridor, and that information pops up in there, then you don't need to do that. So again, this is the step that we're at right now and in project specific, but as we move forward and as we evolve, especially in 25, I'm pretty sure that those materials are in there now. When you run your corridor, you can set those up in your template. So this operation from that may go away. Stephen? Did you have anything?
I was wondering if we've done any checking on PDF size with that rasterized. Does it have any negative effects?
Yeah, it hasn't done anything. It's more the processing in it. As far as the size goes, it doesn't really do anything to the size. We've actually looked at that.
Great.
Yeah, and also we have used this method on all previous training. When we train on roadway and microstation stuff, we do point out to those two settings. I think most of our Pentable by default check the rasterize, but you still have to check it in a print window just to make sure that he actually, the plot driver or whatever, he can read it as well. But our Pentable is set to do this.
Yeah, and keep in mind, again, this is just an example of showing printing a sheet. That'll be set up. I mean, when you do a Pset, it's going to be on all your sheets. You click it once, it's done.
Yep.
So I think with that, unless there's other questions just on this aspect, I'll have Mike go ahead and pull up his to go through the Pset process and kind of just show how that works. All good? Okay, Mike, I'll let you share.
All right. Very similar to what Jeremy was going over. If we want to create a big batch of sheets, we want to come over here to the file, print, and then choose the print organizer. And this will automatically shoot you to your workspace that will have that plot config for you. So you just want to choose that. All right, and then when we're ready to add some sheets, we come over here to the add files to set. Just working off the US 24 workspace currently. So this will work for any of your projects. I'm just going to add a few files so I'm not bogging down the time real quick. So once those three get added, you want to click on this manually specified options. Under this first, under the fence, you want to click this drop down and select all sheet models. Then you want to click under the main tab. This is where you choose your pen table for all of your sheets here. Again, this is what you're going to be used to. It's going to point you directly to those pen tables so you're not navigating. And then before you hit OK, this is where you select the rasterize right here. Just make sure it's the blue check, not the minus. Hit OK. OK. We'll run through that, adding those in. It works a bit slower today, apparently.
So while this is open, I am kind of curious too of, and you can drop it in chat or raise your hand or whatever. How many people are using Psets currently?
Seems like the majority.
So,
I think people find it more useful going through the Pset creating schedules, going through a different method, you know.
mhm.
So
It's a
what
big-
you selected is the 3 different files, right? Only 3 you select?
Right, 3 files. Each of these files has 5 drawing and 5 sheet models in them.
Okay.
As we did before, when I showed the sheet boundary, we had about 29 or so for
Okay.
US 24. So another best practice that we went over before was just to make sure you only have about 5 or 6 sheets in each of these files. Looks like it's very slow today. Should have just done one.
Well, and I
So-
guess
Go ahead.
maybe while that one's open and to there's Schwab, I know with, let me see if I can find that, open that other file. Because I know the question as far as like searchable and I guess as far as the group goes, do most of you use from a PDF standpoint, do you guys use Bluebeam for the most part or Adobe Acrobat or both? Bluebeam's both, okay. Okay, so everybody kind of uses both. All right. So I know from like a Bluebeam standpoint, once you've got your set together, I know that's one of the things that we do at the end. Once we put the set together, we'll run through. It's under document. Under Bluebeam, there's under your menu bar, there's a document and then OCR. You can run that OCR and then that'll just make everything searchable. I don't use Acrobat that much. I'm assuming there's a similar thing in there. But that is one thing that we do with our submittals at the end of the submittal is run that OCR to make sure that those are searchable.
All right, so we got all of these loaded, and then you can just scroll over here to the right, just make sure everything came in correctly. We have the WYSIWYG Pentable attached, and all the rasterized is true. If you needed to modify that, if you forgot to click rasterize, you just select these all and then just change that over here. So then next step, you just save this Pset. We have a Psets folder per our CDOT folder structure. So I'm just going to navigate to there. So this was the reason why I'm doing it on our US 24 workspace, kind of show you that we do have a Pset set up. You'd want to put these under each one of your submittal milestones. So we have FOR, FIR, DOR, such like that. I'm just going to put it under the 100 real quick. And then we're just going to do roadway test. This would be what you want your whole Pset to print as. So you'd want to put your project number ahead of it. So I guess we could do that real quick. So like 25094, roadway plans, whatever you need to do there. Descriptions, just roadway plan test. Just hit save. And once this is the long part, just setting up for the one time. If you have to add any additional files, if you create another set, a 4th set, 5th set, just add that to this one, and then you're good to go. So I'm just going to print 3 sheets real quick, so we're not doing the full set. Again, you come over here to the 3 dots, and this is where you get to navigate either to an area on ProjectWise, or for myself, if I'm just doing a quick test, I'll throw that onto my desktop. Hit OK, let it go through a couple prints right here.